This engine spins a propeller. This one pushes an aircraft weighing hundreds of tons, and this one cannot even work while standing still. Today, we're looking at the main types of aircraft engines, from the simplest to the most extreme. And by the end, we'll find out which engine is best for each type of mission. But first, we only need to understand one thing. Basically, all aircraft engines do something similar. They push air or gases backward, and the aircraft moves forward. It is a bit like releasing an inflated balloon. The air shoots out in one direction, and the balloon flies in the opposite direction. What changes from one engine to another is how that force is created. Some engines spin propellers. Others shoot gases backward at extremely high speed, and some can even work where there is almost no air at all. Let's start with the most familiar one. This is the piston engine. Basically, it is the cousin of the engine inside a car, but instead of turning wheels, it turns a propeller. Inside the engine, air and fuel enter the cylinders. The mixture is compressed. Then combustion happens, pushing the pistons. The pistons turn a crankshaft, and that crankshaft spins the propeller. The propeller accelerates air backward, pushing the aircraft forward. It sounds simple, and compared with a turbine engine, it really is. That is why piston engines are common in small aircraft, flight training planes, private aircraft, and agricultural planes. They are relatively affordable, economical, and work very well at lower speeds. For simplicity, this engine already scores very highly. But there is a problem. As an aircraft becomes larger, the engine needs to produce more power, and you can't keep making a piston engine bigger forever. Eventually, it becomes heavy, complicated, and full of vibration. Engineers needed something more powerful. That is where turbines came in. From the outside, a turboprop may look like just another propeller aircraft, but inside, it is completely different. There are no pistons moving up and down. There is a turbine gas turbine. Air enters through the front, then moves through several stages of compression, then mixes with fuel and burns, creating hot gases. Those gases spin a turbine, and through a gearbox, the turbine turns the propeller. So in simple terms, this is a turbine engine producing power for a propeller, and it works extremely well. Turboprops are very efficient on short and medium distance routes. They can also operate from shorter runways in airports with less infrastructure. That is why they are used in regional aircraft, cargo planes, military transports, and patrol aircraft. On a short flight, a turboprop can use less fuel than a jet aircraft. It may not be as fast, but depending on the distance, the small amount of time saved by the jet might not justify the extra fuel. So for efficiency on short routes, the turboprop scores very highly. But what happens if we take a similar turbine and connect it to a helicopter rotor instead of a propeller? Then we get the turboshaft engine. Its basic operating principle is very similar to the turboprop. Air enters, gets compressed, mixes with fuel, and produces hot gases. Those gases spin a turbine. The main difference is where the power goes. In a turboprop, it turns a propeller. In a turboshaft, the power leaves through a shaft and goes into a transmission. In a helicopter, that transmission turns the main rotor. So even though a regional aircraft and a helicopter look completely different, their engines can be close relatives. Turbine connected to a propeller, turboprop. Turbine connected to a shaft, turboshaft. But what happens if we don't use the turbine to turn anything outside the engine? What if we use the gases coming out of the engine directly? That idea completely changed aviation. This is the turbojet. Air enters through the front and moves through several stages of compression, then mixes with fuel, and combustion takes place. The hot gases move through the turbine and leave the rear nozzle at extremely high speed. By throwing those gases backward, the aircraft pushes forward. The turbojet was revolutionary. It allowed aircraft to fly higher and faster than many piston-powered planes. The first generations of major jet airliners used this type of engine. So did many military aircraft. But turbojets had two major problems. First, they were extremely loud. Second, they used a lot of fuel. Think of it this way. A turbojet takes a relatively small amount of air and throws it backward at incredible speed. That's great when speed is the main priority, but it's it's not the most efficient way to carry hundreds of passengers for many hours. So engineers made a change that sounds simple but transformed commercial aviation. They placed a massive fan at the front of the engine. This is the turbofan. It is the type of engine found on most modern commercial airliners, and that enormous structure at the front is the fan. When it spins, it moves a huge amount of air. Some of that air enters the engine core. Inside the core, it is compressed, mixed with fuel, and burned. But a large amount of air passes around the center of the engine and exits at the rear. This is called bypass airflow. In a commercial turbofan, a large amount of the thrust can come from the fan, not directly from the hot combustion gases. Instead of accelerating a small amount of air at an extreme speed, the turbofan moves a much larger amount of air with a smaller increase in speed. The result is better efficiency and less noise. The turbojet says, "I will take a little air and throw it backward at extremely fast." The turbofan says, "I will take a lot of air and move it more efficiently." That's why turbofans dominate commercial aviation. They can produce enough thrust to move enormous aircraft without using as much fuel as an equivalent turbojet. But not all turbofans are the same. High bypass turbofans are mainly used on passenger aircraft. Low bypass turbofans are more common on military aircraft because they are better suited to higher speeds. And some military engines have a mode that looks like something from a movie. You know that enormous flame coming out of the back of some fighter jets? That's the afterburner. After the gases pass through the turbine, the system injects additional fuel directly into the exhaust section. That fuel burns and increases the speed of the gases even further. The result is more thrust, a lot more thrust. It's basically a maximum power mode, but there's a small problem. Fuel consumption also increases dramatically. That is why an afterburner is not normally used throughout an entire flight. It's used in specific situations, such as takeoff, rapid acceleration, combat, or supersonic flight. And technically, the afterburner is not a separate engine type. It's an additional system fitted to certain turbojets and military turbofans. For pure spectacle, it is clearly in the lead. But the next engine is even stranger. It can work at supersonic speed, but while standing still, it is almost useless. This is the ramjet. Unlike the engines we have already seen, it doesn't use a traditional compressor driven by a turbine. Instead, it uses the speed of the vehicle itself to compress the air. When the aircraft or missile moves fast enough, air enters through the front and is compressed by the shape of the engine. Fuel is injected, combustion takes place, and the gases are expelled from the rear. The design can be relatively simple, but there is one huge problem. While standing still, it barely works. A ramjet needs another system to accelerate it first. That could be a rocket, another engine, or an aircraft that carries and launches it. Only after reaching a high enough speed does a ramjet begin working properly. It's like owning an incredibly fast car that can't leave the parking lot by itself. That's why ramjets are more common in missiles and experimental vehicles than in normal aircraft. But there's an even more extreme version. This is the scramjet. The name stands for supersonic combustion ramjet. In a normal ramjet, the supersonic air entering the engine is slowed down before combustion. In a scramjet, the air remains supersonic inside the engine, and the fuel has to burn while that air is rushing through the system. Now imagine how difficult that is. The air passes through the engine in a fraction of a second. During that tiny amount of time, fuel has to be injected, mixed with the air, and burned. All of this happens while the vehicle travels at hypersonic speed and experiences extreme temperatures. It's almost like trying to light a campfire in the middle of a hurricane, except the hurricane is moving several times faster than the speed of sound. That's why scramjets are mainly used in research and experimental vehicles. They have the potential to reach incredible speeds, but controlling combustion and heat under those conditions is extremely difficult. For speed and level of insanity, the scramjet takes the lead. Now let's move quickly through a few other engines that also deserve to be on this list. The pulse jet works through a rapid series of repeated combustion cycles. Air and fuel enter, the mixture explodes, the gases leave, then the process starts again. This happens many times every second. The engine can be simple and may have very few moving parts, but it is extremely loud, creates a lot of vibration, and not very efficient. It sounds almost like a flying machine gun. The rocket engine is different because it carries both fuel and oxidizer. That means it doesn't depend on oxygen from the atmosphere. Because of this, it can produce an enormous amount of thrust, but it also burns through its propellants very quickly. It's perfect for rockets and experimental aircraft. For a normal commercial flight, it would be completely
completely impractical. The electric motor uses electrical energy to spin a propeller. It has fewer moving parts, produces less noise, and responds quickly to power changes. The main problem isn't really the motor, it's the batteries.
Batteries are still very heavy compared with the amount of energy they can store. And in aviation, every kilogram matters. That is why electric aircraft are currently better suited to short flights, training, and smaller planes. A hybrid system tries to combine two technologies. A combustion engine can generate electricity while electric motors turn the propellers. Or batteries can provide extra power during moments of high demand, such as takeoff. It is a way of using the advantages of electric motors without depending entirely on batteries. The open rotor looks like a turbofan that has lost its outer casing. It uses a turbine to turn large exposed blades. The idea is to combine the efficiency of a propeller with speeds closer to those of a jet aircraft. It could reduce fuel consumption, but it also creates challenges involving noise, safety, and installation on the aircraft. So which aircraft engine is the best? Let's look at the winners. The simplest and most practical engine for small aircraft is the piston engine. The most efficient option for many short routes is the turboprop. For helicopters, the turboshaft is the specialist. The king of commercial aviation is the turbofan. It combines power, efficiency, and lower noise. The most spectacular is the engine with an afterburner. It is difficult to compete with a giant flame coming out of the back of a fighter jet. And the strangest and most extreme is the scramjet, an engine that cannot start by itself and burns fuel while supersonic air is rushing through it. The electric motor, meanwhile, could play an important role in the future of short-distance flying. So there is no single perfect engine. There is an ideal engine for each mission. A training aircraft does not need the engine from a fighter jet. A commercial airliner cannot burn fuel like a rocket, and a hypersonic vehicle cannot rely on a simple propeller. Each engine is a different answer to a different problem. Now imagine you could choose only one of these to see operating up close. A massive turbofan from a commercial airliner, a fighter jet using full afterburner, or a hypersonic scramjet. Which one would you choose? Let me know in the comments. The most popular choice could become a full video on the channel. And if you enjoy learning about the most impressive machines in aviation, subscribe so you do not miss the next video.